The U.S. Army took to Twitter and asked, "How has serving impacted you?" The internet responded in spades, and the stories are heartbreaking. What's in the news were stories on deregulation, F the police, molecules of freedom, legalized prostitution, Julian Assange update, and child porn charges for a child. And an Ask Me Anything segment where I answer your questions on liberty Republicans, animal cruelty and ownership, and disabilities. This episode is brought to you by Health Excellence Plus, a health share that has saved my family thousands of dollars and can save you money too. Also brought to you by Forkfest, the third annual decentralized libertarian camping event that happens right before Porkfest, with no tickets and no one in charge. Also brought to you by all of my dozens of supporters.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that ranks second in overall equality and in economic opportunity according to U.S. News & World Report, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 134, Serving the Government Sucks. And it's Wednesday, June 5th, 2019, when there have already been more than 372 people killed by police this year. And the United States debt clock shows us at more than $22,345,600,000,000 in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. Wow, guys, so this is just epic. The U.S. Army took to Twitter and posted a video of a young Army recruit talking to the camera about how service allows him to better himself as a man and as a warrior. They were then foolish enough to ask, "How has serving impacted you?" And holy shit, did the internet deliver. There were thousands and thousands of responses. Most of them were just heartbreaking to read. Tweet after tweet after tweet, people used this opportunity that the Army had inadvertently given them to describe how they or their loved ones had been chewed up and spit out by a war machine that never cared about them to begin with. Now I'm going to read you a few of these, just because they are a powerful reminder of what serving your country can do to you, and why should you be serving yourself and not some government. These are going to be hard for me to read out loud, and they may be hard for you to hear, but I feel that these are important stories that need to be heard. Now, many of these stories are from volunteers who joined the military willingly. Others are about people who didn't volunteer, who were drafted and forced into service. But either way, these are heartbreaking stories of men and women who wore the American flag on their shoulder and fought for the U.S. government. One respondent said, "My daughter was raped while in the Army. They took her to the hospital where an all-male staff tried to convince her to give the guy a break because it would ruin his life. She persisted, wouldn't back down, did a tour in Iraq, and now she suffers from PTSD." Another said, "I've had the same nightmare almost every night for the past 15 years. And then things got even uglier for the U.S. Army with tweets like, "Someone I loved joined right out of high school, even though I begged him not to. A few months after his deployment ended, we reconnected. One night he told me he loved me, and then shot himself in the head. If you're going to prey on kids for imperialism, at least treat their PTSD. The dad of my best friend when I was in high school had served in the Army. He struggled with untreated PTSD and severe depression for 30 years, but never told his family. Christmas Eve of 2010, he went to their shed to grab the presents and shot himself in the head. That was the first funeral that I attended where I was actually told the cause of death and the reasons surrounding it. I went home from the service, did some asking around, and found that most of the funerals I've attended before have been caused by untreated health issues from serving. My dad was drafted into war and was exposed to Agent Orange. I was born with multiple physical, neurological disabilities that are linked back to that chemical, and my dad became an alcoholic with PTSD and a side of bipolar disorder. I met this guy named Christian who served in Iraq. He was cool, had his own place with a pole in the living room, always had lit parties. My best friend at the time started dating him, so we spent a weekend at his crib. After a party at 6 a.m., he took out his laptop. He started showing us some pics of his time in the Army, pics with a bunch of dudes, smiling, laughing. It was cool. I was drunk and I didn't care. He started showing us pics of some little kids. After a while, his eyes went completely fucking dark. I was like, man, dude's high as fuck. He even calmly explained to us that all of those kids were dead. But that's what war was. Dead kids and nothing to show for it but a military discount, said Christian. Christian killed himself 2 months later. I didn't serve, but my dad did in Vietnam. It eventually killed him, slowly, over a couple of decades. When the doctors were trying to put in a pacemaker to maybe extend his life by a couple of years, his organs were so fucked up from Agent Orange, they disintegrated to the touch. He died when I was 10. He never saw me graduate high school. He never saw me get my first job or buy my first car. He wasn't there. But hey, y'all finally paid out $30,000 after another vet took the VA to the Supreme Court, so, it was cool for him. It's given me a fractured spine, TBI, combat PTSD, burn pit exposure, and a broken body with no hope of getting better. Not even medically retired for a fractured spine. WTF. My best friend joined the Army straight out of high school because his family was poor and he wanted a college education. He served his time and then some. Just as he was ready to retire, he was sent to Iraq. You guys sent him back in a box. It destroyed his children. I was #US Navy. My husband was #US Army. He served in Bosnia and Iraq, and that nice, shy, funny guy was gone, replaced with a withdrawn, angry man. He committed suicide a few years later. When I'm thanked for my service, I just nod. My best friend from high school was denied his mental health treatment and forced to return to a third tour in Iraq, despite having such deep trauma that he could barely function. He took a handful of sleeping pills and shot himself in the head 2 weeks before deploying. I spent 10 years in the military. I worked 15-hour days to make sure my troops were taken care of. In return for my hard work, I was rewarded with 3 military members raping me. I was never promoted to a rank that made a difference, and I have a suicide attempt. Fuck you. I actually didn't get around to serving because I was sexually assaulted by 3 of my classmates during a military academy prep program. They went to the academies and are still active duty officers. I flamed out of the program and have PTSD. And these stories are horrific. And in the midst of all of this sadness, this death, this rape, there's a ray of hope from one respondent. He said, I was thinking about enlisting until I saw this thread. Hard pass. Now, folks, this is what I'm talking about. This is why stories like these are so important. The men and women in these stories were lied to. They were taught they were doing something noble, that they were going to fight for their country. Now, yes, I know they made the choices to do this, but they were still lied to. It doesn't make their choices any better, but goddammit, we need to start doing something to teach these stories to the next generation of young people. If it even helps one young person to change their mind about joining the mob known as the U.S. military, then sharing these horrific stories is worth every bit of this. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, it is that serving others, especially the government, is a big mistake. Serve yourself first and foremost. You guys know that I fully believe in the virtue of selfishness. I serve me only. However, that does not mean not caring, loving, and helping others. In order to serve myself selfishly, I must serve and care for my wife Jessica and my 2 boys, because they are my highest value in life. They are part of who I am. Therefore, it is in my own self-interest to serve them as well. It is not in anyone's self-interest to serve the government or to serve those who don't care. Serve yourself first and never serve the government. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In deregulation news, in September, the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners will be abolished completely. This comes after state lawmakers left town without continuing the board through what's known as the sunset process, an every-decade review and reform process of state agencies. According to a statement from the board Wednesday, all requirements of the plumbing license law will cease to apply in September as well. A bill that would have transferred the board to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations failed to pass. In the last days of the 2019 legislative session, lawmakers debated whether to keep the plumbing board as it is or roll it into the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. Agreements on SB 621 were voted down by the Texas House on May 26th. That same night, a motion to reconsider the action also failed. Now, Governor Abbott could call a special session to continue the board, but earlier this week via Twitter, he indicated that he would not do so. So come September, when the licensing board expires, anyone can call themselves a plumber and legally do work. Now that puts the burden on the consumer to check out a plumber's experience before hiring one, of course, but that's the way it should be. There are currently 58,000 licensed plumbers in the state. Beginning on September 1st, the state will not issue any new plumbing licenses or renew old ones. After that, the state board confirms they will no longer accept applications to take the Tradesman Plumber Limited, Journeyman Plumber, Master Plumber, and Plumbing Inspector exams. Plumbers who are already registered for these exams can ask for a refund. Now, holy shit, guys. It is going to be chaos in Texas plumbing immediately starting at midnight on September 1st. I mean, think about it. Unlicensed plumbers will start cross-connecting your lines so sewage comes to your faucet. Your poo will flush into your bathtub. This is anarchy. As most of you know, I was laid off from my 9-to-5 director of IT job last summer. Among the many terrifying things about losing your job is losing your health benefits. Our family went about 6 months without any kind of health insurance, and the anxiety and worry that came along with that was not insignificant. But after spending dozens of hours researching our options and quickly rejecting the $2,000 a month price tag that came with the options available with traditional insurance, we found Health Excellence Plus, a health share that was a fraction of the cost, and we're glad we did. Only a few weeks after joining as members of this health share program, my wife was diagnosed with a common skin cancer that requires an expensive procedure to remove the cancer and another surgery to repair the damage done from the cancer removal. When this is all said and done, Health Excellence Plus will have saved our family thousands of dollars, and I'll bet they can save you money too. Health Excellence Plus is a health share that meets the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. A health share is a community of like-minded, health-focused members who have joined together to share each other's medical costs above an amount they can comfortably afford. A health share is not traditional health insurance. It is designed to be a catastrophic coverage for major items, like my wife's surgery. The cost of an average family insurance policy for a primary 45 years old with a $5,000 deductible is $1,450 per month. A Health Excellence Plus $500 initial insurable amount with a healthcare strategy is only $783. Get started saving money today at thelavaflow.com/health. That's thelavaflow.com/health. At the police news, a federal judge ordered the Boston Police Department and the Suffolk County District Attorneys to notify their officers and prosecutors that people have the right to secretly record police, as long as the police are on duty and in public. And yes, by F the police, I mean film the police. What did you think I meant? Chief Judge Patty B. Sarris's declaratory judgment Wednesday serves to enforce a decision from last December when she ruled that it was unconstitutional for police to arrest people for secretly recording government officials. Two of the plaintiffs in that case were Renee Perez and Eric Martin, two Boston civil rights activists who secretly recorded the police on the Commons and at Arizona Barbecue in Roxbury. The Massachusetts ACLU's Matt Siegel represented Martin and said the case was brought on behalf of several people who were unlawfully arrested. Siegel said, "We were finding that people were being arrested and being charged with secretly recording police officers who were performing their duties in public. And we believed that those arrests and those prosecutions were improper and unconstitutional." And According to the December court decision, since 2011, the DA's office opened at least 11 case files involving a felony charge under Section 99, a state wiretap law from 1968. During the same period, the Boston police arrested 9 people for secretly recording police officers while doing their jobs in public. Now, Suffolk DA Rachel Rollins and the BPD have 30 days to tell their officers about the December ruling. In a statement sent to WGBH News, Rollins said that her office will comply with the order and is discussing next steps with the Attorney General's office. The Boston police declined to comment. Now, this is great to see, affirming a human right to record in public spaces, no matter the case. Look, if you don't want to be filmed, especially if you're a public servant, then don't go to public spaces. This is a tragedy of the commons issue. If all property were private and not public, then each owner could decide the recording rules on their own property. Walmart may not allow recording, so you may want to shop there instead of Kmart that does allow recording. This is not rocket surgery, folks. In I Can't Make This Shit Up news, U.S. energy officials appeared to rebrand natural gas produced in the country as Freedom Gas in a statement announcing an increase in exports. The U.S. Department of Energy said the expansion of a Texas facility meant more molecules of U.S. freedom could be produced and exported worldwide. I shit you not, folks. The facility, based in Quintana, produces liquefied natural gas. The move was a clear indication of U.S. commitment to promoting clean energy, the statement said. Mark Mendez, the U.S. Undersecretary of Energy, said, increasing export capacity from the Freeport Liquefied Natural Gas Project is critical to spreading freedom gas throughout the world by giving America's allies a diverse and affordable source of clean energy. Of course, the term freedom gas is reminiscent of freedom fries, coined in the U.S. 2003 as an alternative to French fries following France's opposition to the U.S. invasion of Iraq. Republican Congressman Walter B. Jones and his fellow Republican Robert W. Ney also pushed for cafeterias in the House of Representatives to rename their French toast Freedom Toast. Come on, guys. Molecules of U.S. freedom? I mean, this is ridiculous. It is clear that the U.S. Department of Energy has no idea what the word freedom means when they're talking about a process that is crazy heavily regulated. In more deregulation news, Mexico City lawmakers have given the green light to decriminalize sex work in the capital, hoping it will be a first step to a crackdown on sex trafficking that traps thousands of Mexican women and children. While in the U.S., lawmakers are shutting down escort sites using SOPA PIPA, Mexico actually has some brains and is taking a step in the right direction. Lawmakers in Mexico City's Congress on Friday voted 38-0 with 8 abstentions in favor of a bill to remove a line in the civic culture law which said prostitutes and their clients could be fined or arrested if neighbors complained. Temístocles Villanueva, a local representative with the ruling center-left Morena Party, said the new law recognized that people had the right to engage in sex work. He said, "It's a first step that has to lead to regulation of sex work, to fight human trafficking and strengthen the rights of sex workers. Exercising sexuality in our country is still a taboo topic that few of us dare to talk about." Now my question is, how can it be a right, yet be led to regulation? Those two terms do not go together. Sex work is allowed in much of Mexico, but states have different and sometimes unclear rules, meaning workers frequently operate in legal vacuums which can leave them vulnerable to exploitation and trafficking by crime gangs. Debate over the legal status of sex work in Mexico and elsewhere is controversial, particularly among some anti-slavery groups which argue that decriminalization provides a cover for human traffickers. But sex workers and other human rights groups in Mexico say that criminalization only sends the problem deeper underground and exposes an already vulnerable group to abuses by police and organized crime. Of course it does. Friday's bill came after an earlier version was criticized by sex workers and human rights groups. Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum's office sent it back to Congress with suggested modifications which were taken up. Eduardo Centillion, also a Moreno, Mexico City congressman, said now sex work was decriminalized, anti-trafficking public policies should be strengthened. Now look, guys, I am all about ending human trafficking. I mean, it's tantamount to slavery. But pushing an entire industry underground is the worst way to do it, because it makes it easier for traffickers to hide in the shadows among all of the other escort workers. Kudos to Mexico for taking this in the right direction. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians this summer from June 13th through June 18th for ForkFest 2019 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens right before the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means that no one is in charge. This also means that there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping or RV site or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 18th. You can simply relax and go camping with other liberty lovers, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to both of those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. This is the third year of this event, and I have attended all of them so far, so I hope to see you there this year. Get all of the information at forkfest.party. In Heroes News, Politico.com and TheHill.com are reporting that the Justice Department has decided not to charge Julian Assange for his role in exposing some of the CIA's most secret spying tools, according to U.S. official and two other people familiar with the case. It's a move that has surprised national security experts and some former officials, given prosecutors' recent decision to aggressively go after the WikiLeaks founder on more controversial Espionage Act charges that some legal experts said would not hold up in court. The decision also means that Assange will not face punishment for publishing one of the CIA's most potent arsenals of digital code used to hack devices, dubbed Vault 7. The leak, one of the most devastating in CIA history, not only essentially rendered those tools useless for the CIA, but it gave foreign spies and rogue hackers access to them as well. So instead, the Justice Department will go after Assange on the one count for allegedly assisting Manning and the 17-count Espionage Act indictment. There are no plans to bring any additional indictments prior to his extradition. Still, just several months ago, numerous experts felt confident that prosecutors would also hit Assange with charges over Vault 7. Prominent national security journalist Marcy Wheeler predicted in February the DOJ would very clearly go after Assange for the Vault 7 disclosure, and that a sealed indictment against him in the Eastern District of Virginia was likely related to that leak. The CIA is, after all, headquartered in Virginia. Assange himself reportedly expressed concern that prosecutors would charge him with crimes related to Vault 7 as well. But interestingly enough, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz doesn't believe that Assange will ever be extradited to the U.S. He says, "I think the Trump administration has overplayed its hand. They had a very strong case for extradition when they initially accused him of breaking into a password-protected machine and stealing materials. That's a crime. But publishing materials? That's the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I think Great Britain is going to have a lot of difficulty extraditing Assange to the U.S. to face trial for merely publishing information stolen not by him, but by others." Also, apparently Assange has been moved to the hospital wing of the Belmarsh prison in the UK, prompting concerns about his health pending the hearing on his extradition to the US. Assange's health had already significantly deteriorated during the nearly 7 years he spent inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and has continued to get worse over the 7 weeks he spent in Belmarsh, WikiLeaks said in a statement on Wednesday. Per Samuelson, Assange's attorney said, Assange's health situation on Friday was such that it was not possible to conduct a normal conversation with him. Now, you certainly aren't hearing much about this in the mainstream press, of course. This is primarily being reported in Swedish and Danish press. RT News also has an article on the issue. Everyone is talking about Assange, but no one is actually talking about Assange as a human being. He is not a human being to the press. He's just a story. In sex news, Maryland's highest court will soon decide whether a 16-year-old girl, dubbed SK, can face child pornography charges for taking a video of herself performing a sex act and sending it to a few of her close friends. SK shared the video in which she performs consensual oral sex on an unidentified male with 2 close friends and fellow students, who later reported her to the school resource officer. Some friends those are, fuck them in the neck. SK was the only person charged in connection with the alleged crimes. The Special Court of Appeals upheld SK's conviction, ruling that the consensual nature of the act in question was irrelevant, as was the fact that it was not illegal for SK to perform the act. Taking a video of the act and sending it to other people constituted distribution of child pornography, according to the court's decision. The court wrote, "The First Amendment to the United States Constitution did not protect conduct of a minor who distributed a digital video file of herself engaged as a subject in consensual sexual conduct." SK's attorney, Public Defender Claudia Cortez, argued that the statute in question was not intended to punish minors for being featured in pornographic materials, but rather to protect them. Punishing SK, as the state has attempted to do, is cruel and authoritarian. At her initial hearing, the prosecutor said the state was not trying to prove a point in going forward with this case, but that the state believes that the respondent is in need of some guidance, rehabilitation for something deeper, and is just trying to help her. Yeah, that's right. You're trying to help her. So you want to fuck up her life by giving her a criminal conviction and probation. What the actual fuck? Look, it's common knowledge that teens shouldn't send sexy videos to each other because they're bound to get out, cause embarrassment, and raise these sorts of legal issues. Now, this is something that SK's parents, teachers, and school administrators could have impressed upon her without the heavy-handed involvement of the police and courts. It is draconian to charge a 16-year-old girl with trafficking and child pornography because she willingly filmed herself performing oral sex, an act that in itself was completely legal. Upholding SK's conviction would set a disturbing precedent. Fuck the Maryland prosecutor in the neck with a blowjob. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, guys, you can ask me your question by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group, or by emailing me directly at ama@thelavaflow.com. Or if you're awesome as fuck and you support the show, you can ask me your question in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group, or in Patreon, or in Bitbacker and Subscribestar. So let's jump into the questions. First, Daryl W. Perry asks, thoughts on Liberty Republicans who decide to put Republican ahead of their support for liberty? I ask because several Liberty Republicans are among the small group that changed their vote from supporting repeal of death penalty to supporting the governor's veto here in New Hampshire. Well, Daryl, let me be blunt about this. There is no such thing as a Liberty Republican. I will go one further. There is no such thing as a Liberty politician. These two terms are in direct contravention of each other. No one can sit in a position of authority and rule over someone else, creating laws, rules, and regulations for their subjects, and be considered someone who believes in liberty, in my opinion. Even libertarian politicians suffer from this, as we saw here in New Hampshire, where there were several anti-liberty votes by the Libertarian House members. Las Vegas saw this as well a few years ago when their Libertarian congressman voted yes to spend hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars on a stadium. Other states have seen this with their Libertarian politicians as well. Yes, I know this is an unpopular statement, I get that. But damn it, more people need to be standing up against politics in general, especially libertarians. And I mean, look, hell, and I know this is going to be even more popular. Even Ron Paul was not a perfect liberty politician. He endorsed several questionable candidates over the years, candidates that were less than libertarian by a long shot. Now, I'll give him a pass for endorsing his unlibertarian son because, well, that was his son. But I won't give him a pass for endorsing Ted Cruz in 2012, or seeming to endorse Democratic Socialist Tulsi Gabbard, among many other questionable endorsements by Ron Paul. And Ron talked incessantly about the Constitution, as if it were fit to be used for anything other than toilet paper. And look, guys, before you jump on my ass about this, I say all of this out of love for the man who had a huge influence on me becoming a libertarian. Politics is evil, and it can even cause a good man to make questionable decisions. But back to the Liberty Republicans in New Hampshire. Fuck every single one of them in the neck with Governor Sununu's veto pen. Thanks for the question, Daryl. I have two questions from supporter Cegis B, who I had the great pleasure of meeting her and her husband at PorkFest last year. First, she asks, how would we handle animal cruelty in a free society? Damn, that's a tough one, and honestly one that I've never put much thought to. This would be similar, though, I think, to how many libertarians think that child abuse could be handled in a free society. Many libertarians make the case that you lose your rights as a parent if you abuse your child, and that someone could legitimately kidnap your kid from you and give it up to someone who would give it better care. But then you run into the case of what is considered abuse, or in your question, what is considered cruelty. I mean, some people consider it cruel to brand your cattle. Is that grounds for stealing someone's cow? I don't think so. Some people consider it cruel if you don't walk your dog every single day. Is that sufficient grounds? Now, of course, if someone did have their animal stolen in such a case, or their kid kidnapped, they could bring in a court agency, private court, of course, in a free society, to make the case that their animal or kid was stolen improperly. Then the onus would be on the one who took the animal or the kid to prove cruelty. Of course, this would not be a perfect solution in every case, but at least it would be better than what we have in our current system, where the government gets to decide everything in this regard in a completely biased manner, and they can steal your kids and put them in the system. Siege's second question is similar, and it is, secondly, due to a response when asking this question in another group, is owning pets considered animal cruelty? Now, personally, Sieges, I don't think so, but I guess I can see how that case could be made. However, animals are not able to consent, unfortunately. Now, I would like to hope that if my 2 puppies, 3 guinea pigs, and 12 chickens could consent, they would. But who knows? They may prefer to live in the wild or with someone else. But this brings about the question of whether animals are able to reason. I don't believe they can myself. I believe that reasoning is what separates humans from lower animals. Yes, I know this will not be popular with some libertarians and possibly even some who listen to the show, but until someone can show evidence of an animal using logic and reason, I'm sticking to this. Thanks so much for the question, Sieges. And finally this week, Riley B. from the Anarcho-Agenda podcast asks, if you could choose to live with a disability for the rest of your life, what would you choose and why? So, Riley is actually blind himself, so this is an interesting question. The part of me that makes me who I am is my mind, my ability to reason and think and choose. So really, any disability that didn't interfere with that ability is one that I feel I could probably overcome, I think. Losing the ability to walk would make life much more difficult, for example, but my ability to think would still be intact, so I would be able to reason ways around my disability. You, Riley, for example, show an incredible ability to reason your way around your disability, and I am in awe of what you're able to do. I could only hope to overcome a disability as well as you have. But to answer your question, I guess if I had to choose one, it would likely be to lose the ability to walk. I know several people who are in wheelchairs for life, and I see that they can have a very abundant life, albeit much more difficult than those who can walk. Thanks for the question, Riley. So, guys, now my queue is empty. That is really unusual for me. There's always questions in the queue, usually. So make sure to send me your questions so that I can add them to my list. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite pot filler, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/134. I have 2 new and 1 upgraded supporter this week. Barrett B. became a $1 per episode supporter through Patreon. Thank you so much, Barrett. Aaron A. also became a $1 per episode supporter through Patreon. Awesome, man. That helps so much, guys. And John C. upgraded his per episode pledge from $1 per episode to $2.50 per episode through Patreon. Holy shit, man. Thank you. You know, John also sent me a really awesome email, and I wanted to read it here. He said, I just wanted to take a minute to thank you. The Lava Flow is by far my favorite podcast. You have guided me on the path towards true liberty. I was still a believer of the state when I first started exploring the liberty movement only 18 months ago. I quickly evolved from a statist to a libertarian over the course of about 6 months. At this point, I heard your name and the Lava Flow came up on a wall segment right before PorkFest last year, and I decided to check you out. Your fuck them in the neck transition hooked me. I wasn't an avid podcast listener at the time, so I only caught 1 or 2 episodes a month at first. Towards the beginning of this year, I made a strong effort to be more informed and started listening every single week. Needless to say, you helped me transition to a voluntarist very quickly. You are doing a lot of good for the movement, and it is greatly appreciated. I look forward to every episode. John, dude, thank you so much for those very kind words. I mean, that's the reason that I do this show, to help people find out what liberty and freedom really mean, and to help baby libertarians become full-on voluntarist or anarchist libertarians. I'm so glad to hear that I was a help in your transition, brother. 2 other quick comments about your email. First, congratulations. Your transition was much faster than mine. I mean, mine took several years. I was a baby libertarian much longer than you were before I became voluntarist. And secondly, it's great to hear stories like this that make We Are Libertarians actually seem like they're worthwhile. I mean, very much like the Libertarian Party, I think that We Are Libertarians are worthwhile to start those baby libertarians off and, take them from conservative or liberal to being baby libertarians. And then hopefully they'll hear about shows like The Lava Flow or other shows that can help them make that transition to a full-on voluntarist. So thank you so much for the email, John. And thanks to all of my awesome supporters like Barrett, Aaron, and John. I am at $279.57 per episode, or 54.25% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Guys, thank you for all of your support, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content that I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon, or monthly using Subscribestar, or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. Again, that's thelavaflow.com/support. I also have 3 new Apple Podcast reviews this week. B. Thielen says, "Kick ass. I enjoy listening to Roger, and he has a lot of great points. Take a listen and free your mind of the state." Thanks so much, B. Thielen. 6BB1DD9MM says, "Keep it up. Love your show, man. Anarchy is the way of the future, whether the government wants it or not." Amen, brother. Anarchy is the default state for humanity. And finally, Chuck D., a grease monkey, says, "Love it, live it voluntarily. I love the passion that Roger puts into every show. It keeps my fire lit and my axe swinging. My wife, on the other hand, loves his voice like butter," she says. Who in the South says butter? Laugh out loud. Keep leading by example, brother. The rest will follow. Dude, that is awesome, Chuck. Tell your wife that my wife, who is from Tennessee, says butter sometimes too. And guys, if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who has left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.